Everyone at the wedding looked radiant, laughing, drinking, dancing under the golden fairy lights wrapped around the trees. Except her. Alyssa stood at the edge of the reception, clutching a glass of white wine, pretending to scroll through her phone. She didn't know anyone here except the bride, Mia, her college roommate, who had clearly only invited her out of politeness. She hadn't even introduced her to anyone. Alyssa had arrived alone, found a seat tucked in the back corner, and remained invisible the entire evening. Until he showed up, dressed in an effortlessly tailored navy suit. The man with sharp green eyes and a self-assured stride stepped up beside her, glancing at her phone and smirking. "You really going to pretend that screen is more interesting than this party?" She looked up, startled. "Do I know you?" "No," he said, sipping his whiskey. "But you know my brother. He's the groom." Her eyes widened. "You're Daniel." He nodded. Daniel Hayes, the elusive older brother Mia had mentioned once or twice, rumored to be a millionaire tech entrepreneur, rarely seen at family gatherings. And now he was standing here, talking only to her. What followed was unexpected. He sat beside her through dinner, ignored the tipsy bridesmaids throwing themselves at him, and danced only with her. Later that night, after a few glasses of champagne and a heart-to-heart by the garden fountain, Daniel's tone changed. "Tell me something real," he asked, voice softer now. She hesitated before whispering. "I was supposed to come here with someone. My boyfriend. What happened?" She looked away. Found out he was sleeping with his boss. "I left him 2 days ago." Daniel exhaled, then gently took her hand. "Then I'm glad he did. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here." For a moment, the chaos of the wedding blurred around them. The music, the laughter, it all melted into the background. There was only Daniel, and the way he looked at her like she wasn't just a forgotten guest. What Alyssa didn't know was that Daniel had noticed her the moment she walked in, alone in a sea of couples and cliques. He had no intention of mingling with the usual crowd. He came for his brother, but stayed for her. By the time the night ended, Alyssa no longer felt invisible. But the real twist. 3 weeks later, she got an invitation in the mail, handwritten, sealed with gold. Daniel was hosting a private event in Santorini. "No +1 required," the note read. "Just you." And so, the woman who came alone to a wedding, unnoticed and broken-hearted, ended up catching the eye, and maybe the heart, of a man no one could ignore. The days that followed the wedding felt like a dream Alyssa didn't dare believe was real. She returned home to her quiet apartment, the same one she once shared with her cheating ex. His things were gone, thankfully, but the ghost of betrayal still lingered in the corners. Only now, something was different. There was a glow under her skin, a warmth she hadn't felt in months. It came from Daniel. They talked every night after the wedding, sometimes for hours. Voice messages turned into FaceTime calls. He asked about her writing dreams, her childhood dog, her favorite old book. He listened, more than anyone ever had, and when he said, "I want to see you again," it didn't feel like a line. It felt like a promise. That Santorini invitation? It wasn't just romantic, it was personal. Daniel rented out a villa, whitewashed walls and sweeping blue sea views. There were no influencers, no staged moments. Just her, him, and a week of something real. On their second night there, as the sun melted into the horizon and the breeze toyed with her sundress, he kissed her, slowly, like he had all the time in the world. "I don't do flings," he said against her lips. "And I don't make promises unless I plan to keep them." Alyssa's heart pounded. She wasn't used to being chosen. Not fully, not deliberately. But here he was, choosing her every day. Back home, her ex started reaching out. Late-night texts, guilt-laced voicemails. He saw the photos, Daniel's hand on her waist, their wine glasses clinking by the Aegean Sea. One picture showed her laughing, genuinely, head thrown back, radiant in a way she never had been with him. The ex wrote, "I messed up. Let's talk." She replied only once. "Too late. You cheated." He chose. That was it. No dramatics. No dragging it out. Weeks turned into months. Daniel visited often, sometimes surprising her on random Tuesdays with coffee and croissants. He flew her out for his company's gala, introduced her not as a date or a friend, but as his future. It was fast, intense, but deeply grounded. Alyssa wasn't just a rebound from heartbreak. She was a woman who rebuilt herself and was now loved by a man who saw every cracked piece as something worth holding. Their relationship unfolded like chapters in a book she never thought she'd live. One with no plot holes, no lies, no hidden characters. Just honesty, growth, and a kind of affection that scared her with its sincerity. Back in her city apartment, Alyssa began writing again. Daniel had encouraged it from day one. "The world needs your words," he'd said, and somehow, that one sentence had shaken her out of the creative coma she'd fallen into after the breakup. She started with essays, raw, vulnerable pieces about healing, trust, and rediscovering self-worth. She didn't name names, but her ex knew. And so did Mia. Yes, Mia, the bride, who hadn't so much as called her since the wedding. Until one day, out of the blue, her name popped up on Alyssa's phone. "Hey, can we talk?" The guilt was obvious in her tone. As it turned out, Mia had known about Alyssa's cheating ex the entire time. She'd even helped him keep it a secret, afraid the drama would overshadow her wedding week. Alyssa was silent. Mia added softly, "I didn't expect you to end up with him." Alyssa smiled faintly. "Neither did I." She forgave Mia eventually, not because she asked for it, but because Alyssa was done holding pain for people who never carried hers. As for Daniel, he was changing, too. He took more days off, started sleeping in instead of answering emails at 4 a.m., said no to million-dollar meetings if they meant missing a Sunday hike with her. One night, in the same Santorini villa where it all began, he knelt by candlelight with a velvet box in hand. No crowd, no spectacle, just a simple whisper. "Come build a life with me." Tears welled in her eyes, not because she was shocked, but because for the first time, love didn't feel like a trap. It felt like freedom. She nodded, smiling through the tears. Yes, they didn't rush the wedding. Daniel and Alyssa chose something private, personal, nothing like the over-the-top event where they first met. Instead of a ballroom full of strangers, they exchanged vows under an olive tree in Tuscany with only a handful of close friends and family. The breeze carried the scent of lavender, and Alyssa's vows carried years of pain, healing, and gratitude. "I came to your brother's wedding feeling invisible," she whispered, "but you looked at me like I was the only one who mattered. And now, I know I always was." Daniel blinked back tears. "You didn't just show up in my life, Alyssa. You brought light to a world I didn't realize had gone dim." They kissed to quiet applause. There was no viral video, no press coverage. But the photo of her barefoot in a silk gown, laughing in Daniel's arms beneath the soft Italian sun, that one ended up framed in both their offices. A reminder that something beautiful can bloom in the most unexpected places. But even fairy tales have their echoes. A few months after the wedding, Alyssa was invited to speak at a women's empowerment panel. Her story, shared anonymously through her essays, had gone viral. One post, in particular, about betrayal and rediscovery, had resonated with millions. She spoke softly but clearly to the crowd. "You are never as alone as you feel in your darkest moments. Sometimes, the love that saves you is waiting at the very edge of the room, just watching, waiting for you to look up." Backstage, Daniel kissed her temple. "You're not just my wife," he whispered. "You're the storm that rewrote my sky." Her ex, by the way, still watching. He saw her face on magazine covers, heard whispers of her rising voice in literary circles. Read her book, an emotional memoir that never used his name, but exposed his betrayal in every quiet sentence. He messaged again once. Just a simple line. "I didn't know what I had." She didn't reply this time. Some things don't deserve closure. Some people don't deserve second chapters. And some women, like Alyssa, don't just survive heartbreak. They turn it into gold. 6 months after her Tuscany wedding, Alyssa's world looked nothing like it once had. And yet, she hadn't lost herself in it. She had grown into it. The book she never thought she'd write became a #1 bestseller within weeks. Not because it was scandalous, but because it was honest. It wasn't a revenge piece. It was a survival story. A love story. A reminder that being discarded doesn't mean you're worthless. She called it The Invisible Guest. Daniel surprised her during the book launch by renting the rooftop where they had their first long conversation, just the two of them under a sea of lights, like that wedding night. He said, "Your words saved more than just readers. They saved me." But the universe hadn't finished tying loose ends. One day, while signing books at a charity gala, Alyssa came face to face with Mia. Mia looked smaller than Alyssa remembered. Maybe not in size, but in presence. She walked over cautiously, clutching a copy of the book like it was fragile. "I read every word," she said. "And I know you know I knew." Alyssa didn't respond right away. She just nodded, letting the silence stretch. "I was a coward," Mia added. "I thought my big day mattered more than your truth. I'm sorry." "I know," Alyssa replied. "And I forgive you. But I don't need you in my story anymore." It was polite, firm, final. Mia didn't protest. She simply placed the book down and walked away, leaving behind what once was. Alyssa looked down at the front cover. Her name in bold, clean lettering. Her pain, rewritten as power. Later that night, Daniel found her on the balcony, staring at the skyline. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she whispered. "For the first time in a long time. I think everything is." He smiled. "Then let's start chapter 2. Alyssa didn't seek fame. It simply followed the fire she walked through. As months turned to a year, she and Daniel became something of a quiet power couple. They weren't chasing headlines, yet they kept showing up in them. Daniel turned down 3 major tech investments to focus on a foundation Alyssa started, the Guest Room Project, an initiative offering support to women rebuilding after betrayal, abuse, or abandonment. It was her mission now, turning personal pain into public purpose. But even purpose comes with pressure. At a live interview on a major talk show, the host leaned forward with a smirk and asked the question Alyssa knew would come eventually. "Your ex-boyfriend released a memoir last month, Left in the Shadows. He claims you exaggerated the truth for fame, that you made him the villain to sell your version." The audience hushed. Alyssa smiled, completely unshaken. "I didn't name anyone in my book," she said calmly. "But it's telling who saw themselves in the villain." The audience erupted into applause. Behind the scenes, Daniel waited, watching with quiet pride. He had never once tried to outshine her, only elevate her. He often said, "A real man doesn't compete with your spotlight. He holds the light steady." After the interview, Alyssa found her inbox flooded with stories. Women, men, even teens writing to say, "Thank you for showing me I can start over." But success didn't mean immunity from shadows. The ex started posting cryptic videos, clips that suggested Alyssa had always been emotionally distant, implying that he had been the one suffering during the relationship. A few gossip blogs picked it up. One even ran the headline, "Bestseller or Betrayer? The Real Alyssa Under Fire." It stung, but didn't shake her, because she had receipts, and not the kind for show. She had truth. She had healing. And most importantly, she had peace. Daniel sat her down that night in their garden and said, "Do you want to respond?" She shook her head. He's shouting into an empty room. "I've already moved out." Later that week, Alyssa hosted a TED Talk titled The Power of Walking Away. It broke records within 48 hours.